You know, after playing Spec Ops The Line, more than a few questions popped into my head. Such as, can a military shooter really deal with the issues like the genuine horrors of war, and the universal moral ambiguity of it all? Can a story about the horrors we commit on each other be combined with whiz-bang shooty fun without cheapening the message on both sides? Can something as trivial as a video game explore the very real disconnection from reality experienced by ordinary people, put in extraordinarily terrible situations without being hypocritical? Well, anticlimactically enough, my answer is a resounding probably, but since I have this headset and some decent footage, I think I should investigate as to why. My most recent experience of being afraid to peel my hands from the mouse and keyboard, for fear they would be caked in blood and tears, was the punishingly atmospheric and frankly absolutely gorgeous Farcry 3. Farcry 3 pulls the old Eternal Darkness Silent Hill 2 hat trick by putting us front and center for the slow transition of the main character's brain from central processing organ to a bowl of porridge worn as a hat by their neck. The world, actions, and experiences of the main character become notably less and less connected to anything related to reality as the story goes on. The most important distinction between these games and Far Cry 3 is the omission of you. You are certainly an integral part in this person's actions and life, but the distinction between you and them is apparent and well defined. Viewing someone's actions through the third person is a wonderful way to create a kind of emotional distance. It allows us to explore the relationship between the player and the main character. In the case of Spec Ops, do we really have control over Captain Walker? Or are we simply as anchored to reality, being abandoned as he goes charging forward, inflicting ever-increasing horrors? His actions producing a dark feeling of distress and fear of him mirroring that of the men in his command. Just what role do we really have as he continuously tries to rationalize these actions to both them and us, until we eventually end up sympathizing and connecting more with them and becoming as disconnected from him as he is from reality? You see, what separates Far Cry 3's descent into madness from Spec Ops is perspective. Perspective, in most cases, can seem on the far side of relevance, but when discussing these two games, it becomes an integral point of departure. Far Cry sprinkles a revelation of your declined mental state through small moments of brevity, usually in the moments of screaming silence just after a truly surreal experience, causing enough explosions to make Michael Bay blush, while driving around a minigun-toting Jeep to the soothing tune of Skrillex's Electron Fever Dream. It all seems to make sense, and you can connect the dots to how you got there easy enough, but as soon as you step out of the Jeep and your faithful German companion is nowhere to be seen, the necessity of it all is deeply called into question. Certainly it happened. You remember it well, and you even have a witness. But the world seems largely unimpacted by your enormous acts of heroism and bravery. And you slowly start to wonder if maybe other people simply don't see the same things you see. Far Cry uses the environment as your benchmark, and as time goes on, it becomes increasingly less defined by its association with your actions, and you seem to detach from it with increasing ferocity. Even the civilians on the quest they give you become less and less rooted in anything useful or practical, and send you running errands of aliens, necrophiliacs, and a particularly eyebrow-raising moment of doing the bidding of a woman that is, understandably, estranged from her past on the account of her being dead for over a decade. Spec Ops, however, uses its third-person perspective to show you, without subtlety or hesitation, the true weight of the impact of your decisions and their effect on both the player character and the people who remain in contact with him. You're thrown in a situation that has no candy coating, and forced to make decisions for Captain Walker that coincide with his arbitrarily defined sense of morality and value, increasingly distancing you from the character you're supposed to be in control of. Your input becomes less a method of actuation, and more of a vehicle for Captain Walker to, physically, wink wink, fulfill his own desires that he seems to have already made without your knowledge. The perspective in Far Cry, however, allows you to assume the necessity of your actions how you deem fit. Maybe you're doing this out of self-defense or as a means to an end to rescue your friends and family. Maybe what you want is truly help these people, but regardless, in Far Cry, the person in control is you. You are actually doing these things exactly as you see them, right? Well, if anything, Far Cry's choice of perspective does a lot for understanding the insanity plea in court. Even if what was real was different than you thought it was, that doesn't change the fact that, to you, it was real. Spec Ops doesn't give you that luxury. Spec Ops wants you to be constantly and painfully aware of the reality of your actions. If Far Cry's perspective allows you to confide in the thought you are a victim of mental illness, then Spec Ops' perspective seems purposely engineered to place you at the center of blame. After all, as the conscience of Captain Walker, you are solely the one in charge of his action. You were put in charge to see him into and out of this shitstorm, and by allowing him to eject so completely off the rails, the failure, fault, and responsibility is entirely yours. When the courts decide a defendant is a victim of mental illness, such as in the shoes of Jason Brody, It insinuates the blame lies with the third party responsible for allowing a dissolution of control so complete so as to render the acting party blameless. In Spec Ops, the guilty party is you. You are the perpetrator that has made a victim out of these men. Captain Walker and his men were relying on you, and you led them into action and consequence without recourse. The death, torture, and permanent loss of a man's mind are your burdens to bear, for you are the true villain. You know, there was a time when games weren't making you feel so much like a war criminal. Do you remember when video games were wacky, zany fun? When video games used to be about space marines stabbing interdimensional dinosaur demons on the planet Crouton or whatever? That was a hell of a time. I guess this is a result of video games maturing with the audience that grew up with them. As the people that make games have been stripped of their childhood comforts, so too are the games that they make. And while I appreciate any game that seeks to be something more than a brown people genocide simulator, I don't think I need a reminder that I live in a cold, unflinching, inevitable world of torture, despair, and death, because I'm already married.
Are offering a program of dance music.